Welcome back to the Foundation in C# course. We're currently in Module 10, and this lesson we're going to figure out how to ask great questions. Because you can't get great answers without asking great questions. Okay? So, let's talk through the different parts of asking a great question. The first part is define the problem. Because you can't get an answer unless you have the right question to ask. So define the problem. Powerful. If I say to you, I'm having a problem with an if statement, how do you answer that question? That's not really a question, it's more of a statement. You're almost implying the if statement itself is broken, which now it's a silly example, but the if statement's been around for years, decades. So the idea that it is broken is pretty silly. Now, if I said that I've got a first name variable and I put first name equals Tim, and I expect that the if statement's going to say hello Tim, but instead it says hello person, and this is not the desired outcome. The desired outcome is that it says hello Tim, and it's not. Okay, so that's step one, is to clearly define the problem. Step two, reproduce the problem. This is one that's often skipped because it takes time on your end. But here's the issue. You're the one that has the problem. You need to put the effort in first. So create a test project with just the issue in it. So if you're dealing with an if statement, don't have a Windows form application or an ASP.NET application with authentication and all the rest. Just create a little console app with just that if statement. And just a variable that has first name equals Tim, hard-coded. And then from there, make sure it still reproduces the issue. Okay? So strip away any code or technology. First of all, you've done some diagnostic work then. Because you've identified and said, these things aren't affecting this problem. It's just this piece here. But if it works, then you know, whoops, something else is affecting that I took away. And start putting things back in until you figure out, okay, when I add authentication, that's when this if statement doesn't work anymore. And that will help you a little bit with understanding what the problem is, but it will also give you a way to hand people code and say, this code right here doesn't work. So that's step two. Step three. So when I'm working on something, I say, oh, that's a problem, I'm going to ask for help. Have somebody else help me. Well, first figure out if someone else had that same problem and had the problem fixed. And I've listed a few different ways to do that. First of all, identify your keywords. And this is very important. If you don't have the right keywords, you're not going to get the right answers. So if you're doing a problem that is an if statement in C#, which again is very simplistic, but I would say I would search for C# and if. Okay, those two keywords. And it might not apply. All right, so identify your keywords very clearly. If you're using a user interface and that user interface is part of the issue, C#, ASP.NET Core Razor pages, and then if statement or whatever else it is that is specific to your problem. Okay, and make sure they're relevant. All right, now that you have those keywords, there's 3 different places that I recommend searching for code issues at least. First of all, start with Stack Overflow. Search Stack Overflow using those keywords, maybe use those keywords as tags. So you maybe add the ASP.NET Core Razor Pages tag. Just note that not everyone tags the question correctly. So do some searching in there. Don't just do one search, do multiple. Then search Google. Now Google will come back with Stack Overflow answers. Don't skip over those, because maybe Google found a better search ability with their search engine than Stack Overflow did. Then look at the other options as well. Once you search Google, and don't go too far, maybe 3 or 4 pages into the search results. Obviously, page 35 probably won't have what you're looking for, but 3 or 4 pages is probably good. If you search Stack Overflow, if you search Google, and you still haven't found the problem, then go to GitHub, because most of Microsoft stuff and most of the stuff you'll work with is open source. And so look in that repository, the one that's most relevant to you. So for example, I use a lot of Caliburn Micro when I'm dealing with WPF applications. Well, I would go to the Caliburn Micro repository, the GitHub page, and then go to their issues and do a search there and see if there's searches before you move on. So the other thing is, this last point is, look for people that are using the same technologies. There may be people out there that are using, let's just say, Caliburn Micro. So they're using Caliburn Micro and WPF, and they are doing authentication. And so if that's what you're doing, you're having a problem, maybe they didn't say, I had this problem and I solved it. So your searches won't find that. Replace with the way they did it, which maybe is more efficient, or maybe it just works versus your way it doesn't work. All right. So step 3, search for the solution. I've reproduced the problem. I have done really good searching online. I just haven't found the solution I need for this problem. So it's time to ask the question. And again, you've done a lot of work already. This is often skipped. And so if you skip these three steps and go right here, maybe and skip forward 1 to step 5 and actually post your question, you're going to get a lot of pushback from the community because it shows that you skipped right to step 5. And so what happens is the community says no. And they might even be a little rude. And you might say, you know, people are just awful on the internet. They're rude, they're miserable. Stop. Okay? Their job isn't to help you. Their job is what they get paid to do. You're not paying them. So that's number 1. But number 2, if you're not willing to do the work on your own problem, then why should anybody else be willing to do it? So, step 4, prepare your question. Very important. Clear title. So if your title is at all ambiguous, or if it's, the if statement doesn't work, guess what? That's not helpful. So therefore, you need to change that title to say, in a C# console application, the if statement is returning the wrong result. Okay? that question go into the description, read the description before they even know what the question is. That's going to get spend a lot of time making that title clear. The next is create a simple summary and the question right up front. Run an if statement. When I pass in the first name of Tim, I expect to get the if statement to say hello Tim, but instead it's saying hello person. Why is this? That's a simple summary and question. Here's some details about that, and that's what the rest of this is. So, source code is one, but then steps to reproduce this issue. So step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this. I'm not saying as in file new project, create, no. I'm saying if you put because if you're running on Visual Studio 2008 or whatever, the 2005, that's a problem because they don't have the way to reproduce that issue. Maybe it's been fixed. Maybe it's a .NET framework issue that was fixed in 3.0 or even 1.1. Make sure you specify. I'm using .NET Core version 3.1. I'm using Visual Studio 2019. Again, the version number, so 16.4.2. And I'm running C#. Those are relevant pieces of information about your system. It may be relevant. It might be a Linux box. You might be using Visual Studio Code. There's a lot of different options here. So be as clear as possible in your relevant system information. Make them bullet points, just really quick, so a user can scan through and say, okay, there's no obvious issues here, or hey, I've heard about a bug when you're The next thing is how you communicate to the community that you're not just asking them to do your work for you. And that is a list of things you of Bob, I pass the value of Jane, and here's the results I got. All these different ways to show that you tried things. I put a breakpoint here and the value looked right. All these different steps that you've done to make sure that you communicate, I've tried these things, but also to communicate, I've already tried these things, so you don't have to. Because if you ask the user to do work for you, it's kind of nice to say, here's the work you don't need to do. I've already done the obvious things. What am I missing? All right. And finally, this is really important. Kind, appreciative wording. Text is hard to communicate emotion with. So when I am writing out a message to someone, if I'm texting a person, if I say, well, that was dumb, that could mean you're an idiot, or it could mean I'm laughing, okay, because it's goofy. In which case, I put a winking emoji versus an angry face emoji. See, those change the meaning of that was dumb from I'm laughing or I'm kidding you, to I'm angry at you with the same text. In the same way, when you're posting a message on, let's say, Stack Overflow, because that's probably the place you'll post your questions, before they even post, or thanks for reading, or I appreciate any help you can give. These kind of messages communicate that you understand that it's not their job to help you, and that you are appreciative of even just them looking at your question. Doing so makes the user who is reading your question more likely to feel like they want to help you. This is not manipulation, and if you're trying to manipulate doing this, then don't. But this is a clear communication of you saying, I value you, I value your time, and I appreciate it. Okay? So these are all important to a good question. Again, I've heard people say the community is miserable and people don't want to answer questions and those type of things. And there are some people out there that are just miserable. It's going to happen. But for the most part, that's not the issue. I have seen numerous posts that are frustrating because it clearly communicated that the user didn't try anything, that they have a problem, that they didn't even clearly specify what the problem was, and they want me to do the work of tracking down the problem, recreating it, and telling them how to fix their code. That's frustrating. I don't really want to do that. But if you come to me and go, man, I've tried all these things and it just doesn't work. Here's what's going on. Can you help me out? Can you point me in the right direction? I appreciate anything you do, even just to point me in the right direction. That right there communicates, hey, can you come alongside me and help me? And yes, I'd love to. But just changing how you approach it changes it from I'm preparing your question. Prepare all that stuff in advance. Next, actually post your question. Step 1, choose the right platform. Probably the platform is Stack Overflow. That is the number one place to get questions answered about programming. However, if you are asking a question like, is this the right way to code this? That's not Stack Overflow. That's probably more like Code Exchange, which is part of the Stack Exchange network, but it's a different platform. Okay? So if you read the posting requirements, which Stack Overflow gives you, it says, here's what a question should be. Here's when you should post. Exchange is more for code review, where I think it's Code Exchange, maybe it's code review. Anyways, when you post a question there, it's more about people coming alongside you and doing a code review. They're looking at your code and saying, hey, you could do this better. So if you're asking those type of questions, that's where you'd post. Stack Overflow is more for, I think this should work. It doesn't work. Why not? Or I don't see what's broken here, but something's broken here. That's Stack Overflow. And so knowing this will help you post in the right spot. Okay? Also, understand the etiquette of the site. Sites like Stack Overflow are very clear on the etiquette. Make sure that you do what they say to do before you post. Okay? If they say do these 3 steps, do those 3 steps. Don't just say, I have a great question, I can skip that blah, blah, blah. Read it. Understand what they're asking you to do. Okay? Next. But it allows you to put tags on your post. And I say allow, but really encourages you and almost requires you to. And you really should require yourself to. Because a tag will help you classify your post. So a problem with an if statement is probably C# and .NET Core are probably the two that you'd put on there. If it's a .NET Core, if it's a .NET Framework, maybe it's .NET, I believe. Or maybe it's .NET Core and .NET and C#. Okay, the tags that are most relevant to your question. If it's a web application, maybe it's ASP.NET and ASP.NET Core Razor Pages. The 2 tags plus C#. Whatever it is, make sure that you specify those tags properly so that it's easier to search and filter out your question. Because here's the thing about Stack Overflow. I can say, show me only questions with this tag. Let's say C#. And that way, because I'm a C# developer and I know a lot about C#, I can focus my time on answering C# questions. Well, if you don't tag it with C#, it never gets in my list, so I never see it. So definitely use those tags. They're for your help in getting your question answered. Finally, don't be offended. Don't get angry. Even if they're angry or seem angry towards you. Remember, text does not very clearly communicate emotion, so you might be reading into it as well. But respond kindly and say, I'm sorry. How could I better state this question? Or why is this not a good question? Okay? And maybe even say, I went through the rules. And if you term it that way, if you say it that way, you're more likely to get good feedback from them rather than just them shutting down your question. Okay? If you get a person that says, well, that's obvious why this is wrong, say, evidently it's not for me. Can you help me understand what I'm missing? Again, don't take offense. I know it's hard, especially when people do things that are frustrating. But if you add to it, you're not going to get your problem solved. And you're asking for help. If you're going to undercut yourself asking for help, then you're not going to get help. So don't undercut yourself. Be kind in your response. Be clear. Okay, step 6. Again, this is one that's often skipped. So typically, this is the only step people do. Step number 5, post a question. That's why you get a lot of offense taken by people, and that's why you get a lot of questions shut down. You didn't do the research. You didn't ask a good question. You didn't show you can reproduce the issue. All these things add up to you not getting your question even considered. But the last one that people often skip as well is stay involved. Emails when someone posts something on your question. So, if someone says, have you tried this? Try it right away, as soon as possible. So I typically, if I see that someone says something, let's just say I'm on the road and I don't have access to my laptop. My laptop right now, but I will try that as soon as possible. Thank you for the suggestion. Okay? So with that, I've even clarified, I got your message. I'm not just ignoring it for the 8 hours it takes to get out of the car and get to a laptop and all the rest. I'm just not in a place that I can do it right now. So it tells the user, hey, I'm being as responsive as possible as post. I really value your time. If you wait 3 days and don't respond to them, why should they be engaged with you if you're not engaged with them? So right away, post a response, try it, and then tell them the results of the response. Okay? So respond to every comment or answer as well. So if a person just says something to that nature to show that, again, you value their time. The next one is to continue to test scenarios you come up with. And that's because there's still work on your part to do. Show that you're still doing work. And try different things out. You keep working on it. Because even though you've asked for help, it's still your problem. So treat it as such and continue to work on it. Now, if you learn something, this is the next point, update your answer to what you learned. So if you, I usually put update. So I put in bold, I'll put update number 1. And I'll say, I tried using a switch statement, maybe something like that, and it seemed to work, but the if statement still doesn't work. Okay? Then you're showing progress. You're showing you're still actively engaged, and you're cutting down the number of things other people can try. So if someone in the comments said, have you tried a switch statement? You could say in the comments, no, I'll try it now. And then once you find out, respond to the comment again and put it in your post, the results. Okay? Give encouragement to contributors. Again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Be kind in your words. Be very clear in your communication that you're appreciative of their time. Okay? And finally, upvote all help and mark the answer. There are a lot of posts out there where the user asks a question, they get one or more responses, and the user might even say, thanks, that helped, and never mark the answer as the answer. That's not helpful, because now it's your turn to give back a little bit. This is not even a big deal. It's a small thing. Just say, that's the one that worked. Because then this becomes a repository of the one that worked. It also rewards the person who answered, usually with some sort of virtual points. They didn't cost you anything. Answer. Say, yes, that's the answer. Anybody that gave part of the answer or that helped you in the right direction, upvote their post. Give them appreciation. Again, usually it gives them some type of reward, but it also tells the person that's coming after you, these things helped. These were valuable. That helped you too. All right. So with these, you need to stay involved because all the way through the end, so that you are appreciative of others, so that you are communicating to the people coming after you which one is the correct answer, and so that you are giving some type of value back to the person who is helping you. All right? So those are step 6, which is to stay involved. All right. So the pro tip here is this. And I can't stress this enough. People don't owe you help. Bottom line, they don't owe you anything. Treat them kindly and respect their time. If you want to get help, this is the most important thing you can remember or learn. People don't owe you anything. I get a lot of emails to my But every once in a while, I'll get a person that says, help me with this. There's no please. There's no I've tried this. There's no I appreciate your time. It's just do this for me. Now, part of that can be a language barrier. I totally understand that. But part of it is being careful on how you communicate. Communicating that the other person's time is valuable. Communicating that the other person has worth. Communicating that you understand that you are asking for something for free. All those things, if you understand those things and communicate those things, will make your requests more palatable to the person being asked help of. All right? So, people don't owe you help. Treat them kindly, respect their time. All right? So, in your homework, a step or two. Take those slides that we just did, create a checklist off of them, and make sure that you understand these are the things that I need to do before I ask a question. And even once I've asked the question, the steps I need to do afterwards. Because, and I guarantee you this, it will make your questions better. It will make it so you have to ask questions less often because you've already done all the correct searches and you've probably found your answer. And it will make the responses you get better because people know that you appreciate their time. Okay? So that's your homework. Create that checklist, and then every time you have a question, follow it. Okay? Thanks for watching.